In this video, I'm going to be showing how to load and print on the heat shrink cable markers for the CJ Pro II. At the rear of my printer, I can see that I already have my heat shrink ready on a stacker unit. I've also made sure that the roll is feeding from the bottom, with the heat shrink facing upwards. Then, I need to partially open the lid and push my heat shrink through the gap at the rear of the machine. Feed it through there, then raise the lid open and grab it from the other side, like so. Once you've pulled some through, we then need to open the rest of the feed path so that this can go through all the way out the front of the cutter, just down here. To open up the rest of the path, we need to move the printhead carriage using this green button just here. Open this up and push it all the way back. Before I pull my heat shrink through, just make note of these green sliders just here. The green slider on the right hand side has a small black button that says push. Push that in and it allows you to slide this from left to right. Open this as far as it will go and then pull through your heat shrink up to this rubber roller just here. Once you've pulled it through, hold it flat and with your other hand move those sliders in to hold onto the roll. You need to make sure that it will be slightly overlapping the sheet itself, but you can still slide it back and forth. Before I continue to pull my heat shrink through, I need to make sure that I'm lining up my sensor here to the holes that indicate where each individual heat shrink starts and stops. The sensor itself is this clear section just here, and this can be slid from side to side in order to line it up to these marks just over here. Line it up as centrally as you can, and if you do need to double check this, simply pull some through and look through the holes to see if you can see your sensor. Once your sensor is aligned, continue to pull through your heat shrink and feed it out through the cutter and keep pulling until it comes through to the other side and pulls slightly further. At this stage, make sure that your roll is nice and straight and not wonky. Now that this is loaded, I can then lower my printhead carriage back down and make sure to click it into place. Now that my heat shrink is loaded into my printer and my sensor is aligned, I can now move on to the software and begin to print on these. Now that we are back in the software, I now need to go up to the top left and choose to open myself a new file. On the label setup wizard, ensure that your CJ Pro is selected and then choose Finish. This will then put you into the main designer. From here, double left click in the grey section to the side of your label to bring up your label setup. The first tab should be the Printer tab. From here, navigate to the right side of where it says your printer name and choose Properties. This will then open a separate window, and in my case has started on the Help and About tab. We only need to change a few things in here. Go to your page setup, and under Media Type, this needs to be set from Continuous Labels to Labels with Black Marks. Choose this, and if required, adjust your mark offset. By default, you can see here the printer assumes that the mark is on the label. If the mark is slightly above or below, you can use this to move it up and down. If you also require, you can go to the Print options and adjust your top and left offsets if you notice it is consistently printing slightly off. For now, I'm just going to press OK and move on to the next tab, Paper Layout. I will set this to Portrait and disable the rotation, and then move to my dimensions. In my dimensions, I need to set my width and my height to the size of the label that I'm going to be printing. Now these different cable tags come in various different sizes, so make sure to measure yours to know which size to set to. Mine needs to be 50mm wide by 15mm high. Once you have set both of those, then move on to the next tab, the cutter settings. You need to make sure that the cutter is disabled at this stage. You will not be enabling this for any of these tags. Press OK, and your software will then reload to show you your label. From here, you can design your label as you normally would. In my case, I'm going to put some text on here, and will simply say ABC 123. I will make this slightly larger, and then center this to my label. Now that the label is set up and ready to go, I can go up to the top and press print. And in my print menu, I may want to check the printer tab if I need to make any adjustments to the speed it is printing, or the darkness that it is printing, or the heat. These can be adjusted to play around with your print quality. Returning to the General tab, set your number of labels to the quantity that you wish to print. In my case, I will print 4, and then press print to send these through. Now, as you can see here, my labels have just printed. It did have to miss a couple at the start, but that was the printer trying to locate these holes here. But as you can see, once it found the holes, it then started printing consistently on the labels. Now, due to the size of these, the last 4th printed one is actually still within the cutter, so I can just tap the feed key over here to get it to feed it forward slightly so I can gain access to my last label.